Oh, hey there. Have you been wondering what kind of discoveries archaeologists have made lately? Well, off the tip of my trowel, I can think of
new radiocarbon dates that have pushed back the foundation of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, the rediscovery of a pre-classic period Maya settlement submerged in Lake Atitlán in Guatemala, and the remains of the Danish flagship Dannebrog, sunk by Admiral Horatio Nelson, have been found in the harbor of Copenhagen.
Yes. You bet it's a gun.
These are just a few of the many archaeological discoveries made in the past month. Chances are most of them haven't shown up in your newsfeed, so I've carefully sourced, researched, and summarized the most groundbreaking ones in this video to share with you, including an exclusive interview with the leader of the Danish team that found the Dannebrog, and cameos from my executive producer, Emma, because she likes to insist that I exploit her for views on the internet. Aren't you precious? There's no pseudoscience, clickbait, or AI voiceovers. Just real archaeology presented by me, Rachel, an actual archaeologist. If this sounds like it's right up your trench, keep watching and let's dig in to these captivating stories from our past. We have 8 discoveries that I will be presenting in chronological order, starting with the one that goes the farthest back in time. Our journey begins at the end of the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, on the plains of North America, where, according to a new study, Native Americans were rolling the dice in games of chance 6,000 years earlier than previously thought. The study started by developing a test to identify prehistoric dice based on 4 characteristics shared among 293 sets of historic Native American dice that were documented in a 1907 compendium of Native American games. The diagnostic criteria that the objects needed to meet to be considered dice are: they are 2-sided objects made of bone or wood. Their 2 sides are distinguished by applied color or markings. Their appearance side is either flat, plano-convex, concave-convex, or convex-convex, and their size and shape mean 2 or more can be held in a hand and cast onto a playing surface. This test then searched published collections for artifacts that fit these parameters, and then it traced the origins and antiquity of matching artifacts. This has yielded 2 key findings. One is that Native American groups on the Western Great Plains were making 2-sided dice and using them as randomizing agents in games of chance and for gambling no later than 12,000 years ago. And secondly, these artifacts appear in archaeological assemblages from diverse groups throughout all periods of North American prehistory. This suggests that Native American games of chance and gambling represent cultural practices of remarkable antiquity that have survived to and thrive in the present, serving as the foundation of the modern tribal gaming industry. This is just the beginning of what further study of dice, games of chance, and gambling might reveal to us about ancient Native American complexity, social organization, exchange, religion, and worldview. Now we jump forward to 9,000 years ago and head to Kakapel Rock Shelter in Kenya, where researchers have linked ancient rock art paintings to at least 3 culturally and genetically distinct human communities for the first time. Rock art is notoriously difficult to date. Its exposure to the elements make its preservation and physical context highly unstable and hard to study, and it also largely lacks the organic materials that we need for methods like radiocarbon dating. However, Kakapel is different. Not only does it contain rock art, but human remains as well, allowing scientists to combine high-precision rock art analysis, ancient DNA, and excavation data to paint one of the clearest chronological frameworks ever established for African rock art. They have produced the first millimeter-accurate tracing of the main rock panel, capturing hundreds of previously undocumented figures. By analyzing the overlapping images, they have identified 4 distinct painting phases. The oldest layer dates back roughly 9,000 years and consists of geometric motifs, circles, concentric patterns, and abstract symbols rendered in red and white. Archaeological evidence links these artworks to fisher-forager communities of the Kansiore, not sure what the correct pronunciation of that is, tradition. Ancient DNA from a skeleton shows a strong affinity with modern Mbuti hunter-gatherers from Central Africa, suggesting that the ancient artists belonged to a broader network of forest-dwelling populations. The second layer features long-horned cattle, painted in profile with exaggerated horns and solid-filled bodies. This marks the arrival of pastoralist communities, societies centered on livestock, mobility, and herd identity. The cattle resemble Sangha breeds, which are still found in Eastern Africa today. Ancient DNA of two later Iron Age skeletons supports the attribution of this art to individuals closely related to Western Nilotic speakers. Later layers consist of simplified geometric designs painted in thicker white pigments. These likely represent symbolic markings, possibly related to identity, ritual, or livestock ownership. The final phase includes finer white line drawings, suggesting even more recent additions, possibly within the last few hundred years. This layering reveals something rare, a single site used continuously by culturally distinct populations over thousands of years. Rather than replacing earlier art, each group added its own, creating a cumulative record of cultural change. This study has not only revealed that record, but has also created a methodology and blueprint for future research. Our next find is roughly 5,300 years old and brings us to the famous site of Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead Men, in the Indus Valley of Pakistan. The site spreads across more than 620 acres, and at the height of the Indus Valley/Harappan civilization, it supported a population of up to 40,000 people, making it one of the largest cities of the Bronze Age. Until recently, its earliest phases were less clearly understood, and the traditional narrative was that urban development in the valley suddenly kicked off around 2600 BCE. But now, fresh radiocarbon dating from recent excavations has confirmed that the site was already occupied between 3300 and 2600 BCE. The recent dig focused on the area west of the site's famous Stupa mound, revisiting a massive mud brick structure first uncovered in 1950 by Sir Mortimer Wheeler, who thought it was a flood control embankment. The new work disagrees. Detailed stratigraphic analysis and radiocarbon dating of 5 new samples show that this structure was not simply defensive or hydraulic in nature. Instead, it appears to be a multi-phase mud brick city wall, constructed and expanded over centuries. Pottery and carbon samples from the lowest levels indicate that the earliest phase of the wall dates around 2700 to 2600 BCE. Deep coring below it uncovered early Harappan-style pottery, confirming the presence of a substantial settlement predating the wall itself. This indicates that Mohenjo-Daro was not built from scratch during the mature Harappan phase. Instead, it evolved from an already established community. This aligns with parallel findings at Harappa, where early fortifications and occupation layers date to a similar time frame. Examination of the upper levels of the wall show not only later construction phases that belong to the mature Harappan period, but that the wall itself was expanded, reinforced, and maintained until at least 2200 BCE, and possibly longer. This long-term investment suggests a sophisticated understanding of urban planning and resource management. This is not a minor chronological adjustment. These findings are a significant step forward in understanding the evolution of urban life in the Indus Valley. Rather than a sudden emergence of cities out of nowhere, the evidence now points to a multi-phase trajectory, literally rewriting history. I'm going to briefly pause this video to speak about its sponsor, Manta Sleep. Now, I have always valued a good sleep.
What's your favorite part?
Nap time. Even more so since I became a parent. So I jumped at the chance to try their silk sleep mask and pillowcase bundle, plus the accessory cooling pads that you can actually switch out into the mask. When they say these are blackout, they are not kidding. Here, let me show you. See? I really like how the iPads, the way that they're designed, doesn't put any pressure on your eyes, especially with the weighted cooling pads. The pillowcase is so soft and cool, which makes it extra appealing in a hot summer. So if you're looking for a nice wee treat to upgrade your sleep, head on over to their website and use the code InsideArchaeology for 10% off. Happy snoozing! Back to the archaeology. Our journey continues now to a bay that curves between the southern port of Algeciras and the Rock of Gibraltar in Spain, where archaeologists have documented the wrecks of more than 30 ships that sank near the Pillars of Hercules between the 5th century BCE and the Second World War. Over this span of 2,500 years, the bay has swallowed everything from Phoenician and Roman vessels to British, Spanish, Venetian, and Dutch ships, as well as the odd airplane. In total, 151 archaeological sites have been identified in the bay, including 134 shipwrecks, of which 34 have been documented. The oldest is a Punic-era ship dating to the 5th century BCE, and there are also 23 Roman ships, 2 late Roman ships, 4 medieval ships, and 24 vessels from the early modern period. These wrecks tell the story of war, trade, exploration, and settlement in and around one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. There are few places in the Mediterranean that have this kind of concentration and such significant variety of archaeological remains, especially in terms of different cultures or nations. One of the most exciting finds has been the wreck of a small, late 18th century gunboat that were used at this time for rapid, stealthy attacks on British ships around Gibraltar. The attack craft would often disguise themselves as fishing boats before flinging off their netting and firing their prow-mounted cannon at their enemies. Despite being frequently mentioned in contemporary reports, boats like this have been little studied by archaeologists. Unfortunately, the sites are at risk from modern port development, dredging, and dock construction. The climate emergency is also already threatening all these sites, as rising sea levels are altering sediment layers and exposing them, and also an invasive algae has been growing over rocks and the wrecks alike. In order to share their finds and raise awareness of the importance of preserving these sites, the researchers have made virtual models and 360-degree videos of them to share with the public online and in local museums and town halls. The waters of the bay offer us an unparalleled opportunity to analyze the evolution of maritime history throughout pretty much the whole of the Iberian Peninsula and northern Africa. Next, we jump to the late Preclassic Maya period, which dates from roughly 350 BCE to 250 CE, and we head to Lake Atitlán in the highlands of Guatemala, where archaeologists have found a large submerged Mayan settlement. Renowned as one of the world's most beautiful lakes, it sits inside a volcanic caldera. It has a surface area of 137 square kilometers, and a depth exceeding 300 meters in some parts. Since the basin has no surface outlet, rain, seepage, landslides, and earthquakes can push the shoreline up or down. For example, a massive earthquake in 1976 dropped the waterline by 2 meters in 1 month. Human presence in the lake basin dates back to at least the Maya Preclassic period, and Maya communities still live on its shores today. The first underwater explorations of the lake date back to the 1960s, and in 1999, a diver guided archaeologists to structures. They found 3 residential groups, several isolated structures, and a carved basalt stela. Later work produced a site map, identified up to 12 architectural complexes, and carried out the first excavations. However, this work was marred by the fact that they didn't really record the location of the site very well, scattered information, and above all, growing distrust between archaeologists, national authorities, recreational divers, and the Maya community. Now a new approach has been taken, working collaboratively with the locals to relocate the site. The project identified 4 points of interest on the lake bed and began with a survey of 70 kilometers of sonar transects and narrowed the search to just one of these 4 points. 8 divers then rotated across 4 days and logged a cumulative total of 2,400 minutes underwater. During the first dive, the structures described in the previous investigations were found and then expanded upon. In total, 5 architectural complexes were found, consisting of a closed plaza, a twin circles group, a group of dwellings, a stela and altar, and another stela. A test excavation 41 centimeters deep into the mud of the lake bed identified 5 stratigraphic units in the sediments. In Unit 4, ceramics fragments and an obsidian flake were recovered, analyzed aboard the ship, and dated to the late Preclassic period, after which they were returned to the base of the excavation and the test pit was resealed, complying with the agreement established with the locals, to whom these ancient places still hold presence and obligation and significance, not just information for archaeologists. The collective data showed that the settlement stood on an island and was abandoned after a natural event that raised the lake level rapidly and permanently. As the water covered the structures, it protected them from surface erosion, leading to some exceptional preservation conditions, even of wooden elements that may still be preserved beneath the sediments. The nature and scale of the site make it an exceptional and unique case within Mesoamerica. Next, the researchers plan to conduct more geophysical surveys, stratigraphic test pits, and jointly develop protection and management policies for the site in conjunction with the locals. Now we head to the Roman era of Egypt, which spans around 600 years from 30 BCE and the death of Cleopatra to 642 CE. There, archaeologists working at the ancient site of Oxyrhynchus have made an unexpected literary find: a papyrus fragment from Homer's Iliad inside a mummy. This burial was part of a wider necropolis known for its mummies adorned with golden tongues, placed inside the mouths of the deceased, which were believed to ensure that the dead could speak in the afterlife. This find comes from a group of Roman-era mummies, some of which were wrapped in linen, decorated with geometric patterns, and accompanied by painted wooden coffins. And inside one of them was a rare papyrus fragment containing text from Book 2 of the Iliad. Specifically, the passage corresponds to the famous Catalogue of Ships, which lists the Greek forces that sailed to Troy. Finding a classical Greek text inside an Egyptian mummy is exceptionally rare. What is it doing there? Was it meant as a symbol of education, status, or cultural identity? Classic archaeological question: was it part of a ritual? Or maybe was it just this person's favorite book? Or maybe they needed some reading material for the journey on Ra's solar barge through the underworld to reach the eternal afterlife. The artifacts recovered from the site, including the papyrus, are now undergoing conservation and detailed study, including advanced imaging and papyrological techniques to analyze the text and its context. If you had to pick one book to bring with you into the afterlife, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. Next, we head to the 6th century CE, roughly 1500 years ago, as lost pages of a New Testament manuscript dating to this time have now been reconstructed. Codex H, as it is known, is a fragmentary parchment copy of Paul's letters. At some point, the manuscript made its way to the Myisti Lavra monastery on Mount Athos in Greece, probably by the end of the 10th century, where it was re-inked in its entirety. By the early 13th century, the pages were reused as binding material and flyleaves for other manuscripts. Today, the surviving fragments are scattered across libraries in France, Italy, Greece, Russia, and Ukraine. And an international team of academics has been able to piece together all of these fragments to recover 42 pages of the text that literally don't physically exist anymore. And how exactly did they do that? Well, when the manuscript was copied and re-inked hundreds of years ago, the chemicals in the new ink caused offset damage to the facing pages, like when you, for example, use a Sharpie and it bleeds through a page and shows up on the other side. This essentially created a mirror image of the text on the opposite page, sometimes leaving traces several pages deep. This damage is barely visible to the naked eye, but it is very clear when you look at it using multispectral imaging to look at the existing page fragments. This allowed the researchers to reconstruct multiple pages of information from every physical page that still exists of the manuscript. To ensure historical accuracy, the team also collaborated with experts in Paris to perform radiocarbon dating, confirming the parchment's 6th century origin. Key findings from the recovered text include ancient chapter lists that are the earliest known examples of chapter lists for Paul's letters, and differ drastically from how we divide them today. Insights into how 6th century scribes corrected, annotated, and interacted with these sacred texts. And the physical state of the manuscript shows us how sacred works were reused and repurposed once they fell into disrepair. While the recovered text contains known portions of Paul's letters, this discovery offers us a unique insight into how the New Testament has evolved and been understood throughout the centuries. A new print edition of Codex H is planned to be published, and a digital edition is freely available at the link in the description, making these recovered pages available to the public and scholars for the first time in centuries. Good girl. You're so sweet. Our last discovery this month is just 225 years old and comes from Copenhagen in Denmark, where underwater archaeologists have located the wreck of the Dannebog, the Danish flagship sunk by Horatio Nelson during the Battle of Copenhagen in the Napoleonic Wars, an incident that sparked the phrase "to turn a blind eye." Otto Uldum from the Viking Ship Museum in Denmark is leading the excavation team and took some time to speak with me about this amazing discovery. Let's dig in to what he had to say. Can you tell us exactly what it is that you and your team have found in Copenhagen?
It's a ship of the line, a Danish man of war that founded in 1801 during the Battle of Copenhagen. We Danes, we call it the Battle of the Roadstead, because it's the roadstead of Copenhagen. I think actually Nelson's column was originally erected in commemoration of that battle. But then he managed to win another couple of battles, so they just pulled them all. One of Nelson's first great feats was, of course, part of the Napoleonic Wars. The Danes had sided pretty much Napoleon, not completely though. We called it was a condition of armed neutrality. Danish shipping benefited greatly from trafficking goods to the warring parties, including France. England was not having that. The English, they decided that they needed to put some action behind their words, and they sent off a fleet to convince the Danes that they should leave the band of armed neutrality.
Can you tell us more about how exactly the Viking Ship Museum got involved and how you located the wreck itself?
The investigation came about because there's a new artificial island to be established off Copenhagen. Prior to that, they made a lot of pre-disturbance surveys with all kinds of electronic equipment. Well, they turned it into a package of data that we received, and of course we reviewed all of it. We also participated as archaeologists, determining whether some man-made object or possible unexploded ordnance was perhaps an archaeological site. But we knew that the Dannebog was supposed to be there. It was found in 1974. A museum professional who worked in accordance with some amateur divers, and they actually found the wreck at the time and made one dive on it, and they recorded the position, but that it was before the time of GPS. The exact coordinates were not very well known, but we knew roughly where it was supposed to be. Since the seabed is so muddy, it's really horrible conditions. We couldn't really see anything on the recorded data. We had some side scan sonar data, and it didn't really present itself at all in those. We laid out a series of trial trenches, and then we did find some wood and some ballast stones, and then we decided to work from there. It turned out to be something more substantial.
Can you explain what makes this discovery of this shipwreck significant?
The battle was fought between quite a large English fleet of fully rigged ships with sails and everything that came from England. But the Danish weren't as ready. They didn't have the fleets fully fitted out, and many of our ships were maybe in Norway and here and there and everywhere. The basic fleet that was not fitted out, I mean, every navy at the time would do that. I mean, they would have a number of ships that were fitted out each year, and a much larger number of ships that weren't fitted out, and they were just laying idle, and then they would maybe be fitted out next year or next year again. I mean, they would circulate the whole fleet. So they decided to use that unfitted fleet. They would drag them out on the roadstead, and they would anchor them up, and they would fit them with guns, just the lower part of the masts that were permanently there. Many of the crew weren't regulars. So it was a bit of a ragtag army or navy, though they managed actually to put up a fairly good defense, ending in the north with a sea fortress. I mean, an artificial island that was built on the roadstead. Then the battle began on the morning of the 2nd of April, 1801.
This is a really significant battle in Danish history then, I presume, because was the ship not also like the lead ship of the fleet, or was that incorrect?
Yes, the Dannebrog was, we call it the flagship. I mean, the Admiral Alfred Fisher, he had that as his command. The English knew that, so they would hammer loose on the Dannebrog. It actually only lasted for less than 2 hours, and then he had to move ship. Battle ended not entirely in a military way. I'm sure the English also have the saying, to put the looking glass on your blind eye, and that actually stems from there, because Nelson was not in command on the English side. He was still a junior admiral at the time. It was Admiral Sir Hyde Parker who was leading the fleet, and he actually signaled to Nelson to retreat, and Nelson chose not to see that, and then he kept on fighting.
That spurred the saying to turn a blind eye.
Yes, because he only had one eye that was functioning. Told his aide that he was in a position where he once in a while could choose not to use his good eye.
You've mentioned it already, but can you tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that you guys have had with excavating this wreck? Obviously, underwater archaeology is a whole different bag to terrestrial archaeology that comes with its own set of difficulties that I don't often get to cover on this channel.
Well, maritime archaeology, underwater archaeology is, of course, comes with its own set of strengths, but this one has been even more difficult than usual, because from the time of the battle and up till now, Copenhagen has been sending out huge amounts of sewage out in the waters off Copenhagen. 1.5 to 2.5 meters of very soft, black, very loose sediment has accumulated everywhere. So we had to deal with that, and that has been our main opponent in this. We had to suck that away pretty much. We couldn't see anything at all for the first, 4 or 5 weeks, and then we were slowly getting down to the ballast mount. I mean, a ship of that size had a huge amount of permanent ballast made out of stones, boulders, and iron blocks, and old used cannons, and all kinds of heavy stuff that they could find that could be shifted around manually, pretty much. Then we got down to the ballast mount, and then things started to lighten up a little bit, and we could see where we were going, and we started to find some timbers and started to estimate how much of the ship was preserved.
How were you able to identify that it was the Dannebrog?
It's the only ship of the line that part in the battle that is supposed to be there. We know pretty much where every ship on the Danish side founded. The recordings of the battle are very precise. There are no other wrecks that could be mistaken for this one. And it's like less than 100 meters off the known position from 1974. And also, when we did have a chance to record the timbers and record the dimensions of the frames and the spacing of the frames, it fits exactly with the drawings of the wreck.
You've talked about the ballast and the timbers. Have you found anything else on the wreck that you've taken up?
We've found a lot of smaller items, lots of ceramics, shoes, buttons. We have a very nice regimental mark in the shape of a grenade, a shape that was widely used throughout Europe for grenadiers. So a grenadier would pretty much be an infantryman. And there would be infantrymen on the ships. I mean, there would be regular foot soldiers, not sailors on board the ships, because they would form, I mean, the small arms force that were present on all the ships. We found a version of that kind of regimental mark that wasn't known before, but it's actually with an inscription that's totally unknown, but it actually makes sense because it's the Zealandic Grenadiers Regiment, and they were actually a Marine infantry regiment at the time, so it makes perfect sense. And that's actually the only physical evidence we have of that regiment. So it's only known from written sources. We also found some cannon.
Du får med en Billik.
Yes. You bet it's a gun. Okay.
They might be used as ballast actually, but they correspond perfectly with the type that was supposed to be on the Dannebroge. We have an assembly of 4 guns lying just atop of each other, pretty much, which are Danish 24-pounders.
The excavation is almost finished. What's going to happen to the wreck? Is it just going, because now that they're building an island on top of it, is it just going to be reburied? Or what are the future plans?
It is going to be reburied. We've gained a lot from this. I mean, we've managed to identify the wreck pretty much, and we've managed to describe its extent and the state of preservation, and we have gained a very good sample of the small finds that are there, and we are raising 2 of the cannon. We had to break 1 gun loose from a huge concretion of guns, so we've been hacking away with crowbars and stuff, and managed to get it pretty much loose. Another one was pointing 45 degrees out of the mud, and we managed to excavate it about 2/3, and then we pulled it out of the mud. They are both very nicely preserved.
And presumably they will be hopefully put on display at the Viking Museum, where people will be able to visit and learn more about it.
I think they will, yes, because we are fortunate enough to have economy for their conservation, which will take 8-9 years, according to the man. They have to be in electrolysis for a huge amount of time.
What a fascinating find. Many thanks to Otto for speaking to me, and congrats to his team on this amazing discovery. All right, everybody, time to pack up our finds and hang up our shovels. That's everything for this video. Did you like it? Which discovery was your favorite? Is there anything important that I missed? Don't forget to comment, like the video, or subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can also give me a super thanks on YouTube, or go to my Ko-fi page and support me with a small donation there. If you like the look of my bookshelf or my Lego sets, head to my Amazon storefront to shop my shelf, or go have a look at my Redbubble shop and get a sticker, t-shirt, hat, or mug with your favorite archaeology slogan that I personally have designed. I hope that you come away from this video knowing that despite what crazy nonsense the algorithm might be shoving down your throat, archaeology is alive, well, and working hard every day to broaden and expand what we know about the past. Every watch, like, subscribe, and click here helps my channel keep going and connect you directly to the source of exciting archaeological news. It shows the algorithm that people are interested in learning about real archaeology. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.